Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming to Howard University. I'm Brad Grant. I'm the interim chair of the Department of Architecture here at Howard University. And my job this morning is to welcome you and to introduce our first keynote speakers here. And apparently my job is also to represent the Provost's office, who is to also come here to welcome you. So I'm going to represent the Provost's office as well as the Department of Architecture at Howard University and welcome you here to our second U.S. Conference on Housing, Land, and Property in Crisis here at Howard University. This is very exciting. We did it last year. Many of you were here last year, and this is our second go at it. But it's important for me to begin this welcome by acknowledging that we gather on this Howard University site within the territory of many indigenous peoples that have known the Potomac Valley and its lands and waters as their homelands for thousands of years to the present day, including the Algonquin, the Iroquois, the Sioux, and the Piscataway peoples. Howard University, as a historic Black college and universities termed the HBCUs, some of you know this, and our motto is truth and service. And with that motto, we recognize that long prior to the European occupations and through today, indigenous people have stewarded the lands and waters of this American continent. Thus, we begin by recognizing the Native nations' past, present, and future, unbroken and unbreakable connections to this land. This conference has inspired us to consider our own histories on this land. We at Howard University are engaged in learning about the land we sit on and its relationships to communities of our ancestral people, of the Anacostan, part of the Piscataway chieftain, recognizing that today's Piscataway are descendants from the merged chieftains people. This same land was claimed and taken by the U.S. Bureau of Refugees, Freedmen, and Abandoned Lands. If you recall your history after the Civil War, this very site was one of the first lands claimed by what is often referred to as the Freedmen's Bureau. Headed by, the Freedmen's Bureau was appointed to General Otis Oliver Howard to found Howard University. And this happened in 1869. Over the 155 years since, Howard has built on this confiscated land and future shaped the place, buildings, and landscapes that we have here today. We recognize these thick and layered histories and work to have our teachings, scholarships, and practices not merely amplified by these narratives, but contribute to and support indigenous people, places, and communities. Again, welcome to Howard University. I would like to introduce our first session of keynote speakers, and we're really fortunate to have two extremely powerful and important speakers. It was important for me to be able to identify and invite our two speakers, both whom are Howard alumni. I want to put that plug in. And both really supportive of Howard. Our speakers include Reverend Dr. Judy Fisher. Dr. Fisher is the founder and president and CEO of Mercy Outreach Ministry. Mercy Outreach Ministry is an international mission of the Full Gospel Church of the Lord's Mission Incorporated. Its primary focus has been in Haiti for over 22 years in the rural communities. Mercy Outreach Ministry, or oftentimes called MOM, M-O-M, focuses on the transfer of alternatives and sustainable technologies for development of impoverished communities. MOM opened the first solar oven bakery in Haiti in 2008, and I was fortunate enough to visit the solar bakery in Haiti. It's an incredible project that she has going there. In the rural area of Petite des Rivières des Natips, Haiti. Reverend Dr. Judy Fisher is an alumnus of Howard University, earning her Doctorate of Divinity and Master of City Planning here at Howard University. And then we also will have Dr. Fritz Olivier. Dr. Olivier is a distinguished architect and scholar with extensive expertise in architecture and theology. He earned a master's degree in architecture from Pratt Institute, enhancing his architectural and theoretical skills. He further deepened his academic prowess with the Master's of Divinity and a doctorate in the ministry from Howard University, where he received multiple academic awards. Dr. Olivier also holds a Master of Theology from Princeton Theological Seminary and a doctorate degree focusing on leadership from Wesley Theological Seminary. His educational background offers deep insights into leaderships and theology, enriching his contributions to various professional and academic environments. Professionally, Dr. Olivier has managed significant architectural projects in Haiti, including hospitals, commercial, and residential buildings. He continues to provide consultancies for architectural firms and community projects. As the founder and CEO of University GOC in Haiti, he has played a crucial role in developing diverse academic programs with a focus on architecture and urban development, demonstrating his commitment to enhancing education and professional training in Haiti. He also is an acclaimed and accomplished author with his latest book, The Evolution of Architecture, exploring the intersections of architectural practice and evolutionary biology. I also want to add that I was fortunate enough to visit the University GOC several years ago, one of the first universities, if I'm correct, that offers an architecture program and an architectural degree in Haiti, an incredible university, incredible program. And with that, I want to ask Dr. Olivier to come forth and start the presentation. Let me just mention also, if he doesn't, that Dr. Olivier has produced a number of brochures and folders of his presentation that will be available to you after the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. If you like to have a brochure of what we have prepared, I think it's better. It's on the shelf here, so I guess that everyone can get a copy of it. That would be great to have. So we can follow together what's all about the assessment of housing, land, and property rights in crisis in Haiti. I also had the opportunity of meeting some of you here and working also in Haiti. It's a real pleasure to know that some of you have works in Haiti. I hope at the end of this conference we will have the time to meet and share some thoughts about what's going on. So today, to understand the issues surrounding the assessment of housing, land, and property rights during the crisis in Haiti, it's important to consider the following problems and alternatives, which are described in 5 points. First, the Western Hemisphere poorest country, Haiti, faced significant housing, land, and property rights challenges exacerbated by political instability, natural disasters, and inadequate legal frameworks. These issues are critical as they affect not only the shelter, but also the security and economic stability of the Haitian population. Haiti's housing crisis is primarily driven by the country's vulnerability to natural disasters and the lack of resilient infrastructure. The 2010 earthquake and subsequent disasters, including the 2021 earthquake, severely damaged or destroyed hundreds of thousands of homes, leaving a significant portion of the population homeless or living in inadequate conditions. The reconstruction efforts could have been faster and more complicated by the need for clear land tenure and property rights, leading to precarious living conditions and hindering effective recovery and rebuilding efforts. Second, post-earthquake reconstruction. Post-2010, an estimated 1.5 million people were displaced, with many forced to live in temporary shelters or in formal settlements. The American Red Cross and other NGOs have attempted to address these issues through transitional shelters and housing projects. However, the lack of comprehensive urban planning framework and clear property rights has significantly slowed these efforts, leading to long-term displacement. Third, land and property rights issues. Haiti's land tenure and property rights are characterized by ambiguity and inefficiency, which pose significant challenges to development and disaster recovery. The absence of reliable public land registry and the prevalence of informal land transactions without proper documentation lead to frequent disputes and hinder investment in land development. The complexity of Haiti's land tenure system is a major barrier to recovery and development. Many land records were lost or destroyed in the earthquake, and the process to claim or reclaim land is fraught with bureaucratic challenges. This situation is exploited by powerful elites who engage in land grabbing, further marginalizing the poor and complicating efforts to rebuild communities. Fourth, necessity of implementing zoning codes and urban planning framework. Implementing zoning codes and a robust urban planning framework is essential for Haiti's development, particularly in urban areas like Port-au-Prince, and why not the whole country. These tools can help manage land use efficiently, reduce vulnerability to disasters, and improve overall urban management. Port-au-Prince's rapid and uncontrolled urban sprawl has exacerbated the vulnerability of its residents to natural disasters. The lack of effective zoning and urban planning has led to poor land use decisions, inadequate infrastructure, and high population densities in areas prone to flooding and earthquake. Implementing zoning codes could regulate building standards, land use, and provide safer and more organized urban growth. Fifth, strategic recommendations for urban planning framework. The purpose of strategic recommendation for an urban planning framework can be utilized and implemented internationally, especially in underdeveloped countries. Its purpose will be educate. Initiatives to raise awareness about the benefits of zoning and urban planning are crucial. Educational programs targeted at local government officials and the general public can help build support for these changes. Implement. With support from international donors and organizations, the Haitian government should develop and implement zoning codes tailored to the local context. This includes defining land use, categories, setting construction standards, and planning for public services and infrastructure. Assess. Continuous assessments and revision zoning codes and urban planning policies are necessary to ensure they remain effective and relevant. This process should involve feedback from a wide range of stakeholders, including community members, urban planners, civil society, organizations, and the private sector. Housing, land, and property right crisis in Haiti underscore the urgent need for comprehensive urban planning and the implementation of effective zoning codes. By addressing these foundational issues, Haiti can enhance its resilience to future disasters, improve living conditions for its citizens, and foster sustainable economic development. The path forward requires a concerted effort from both national authorities and international partners to educate, implement, and continually assess the effectiveness of these critical urban planning measures. Finally, expanding the strategic recommendations for urban planning framework globally provide a systematic approach to tackle persistent housing, land, and property rights crises in underdeveloped countries or nations. This initiative encourages collaboration across borders, allowing professionals in architecture and urban planning to contribute their expertise on an international platform. Such framework not only promotes sustainable urban development, but also helps in reducing inequalities by ensuring more people have access to safe and affordable housing. Ultimately, by implementing these strategic recommendations universally, there is a potential to significantly improve living conditions and elevate the quality of life for communities worldwide, paving the way for a more human and just global society. Thank you very much.
Reverend Dr. Fisher, please come.
Good morning. You may wonder about that hug. You see, when I was here as a student, he was Professor Brad Grant. But now that I'm out on my own and I'm 83, he's my son. So, good morning to everybody. It's good to see you here. Those that I met last year, it's a pleasure to see you again. And before I start on this very important topic, I want to explain something to you, and I want you to take it for what it's worth. My daughter and I caught a sale on a nice fat turkey the other day, actually reduced to 49 cents a pound. So we grabbed 4, right? So we had to cook one because we didn't have enough room in the freezer for 4 turkeys. In cooking that turkey, when it was finished, it had a nice broth to it. Oh, it was good. So I said, let me add something to it. I put some onions and some carrots, and you know how we do, right? And I let it boil down for about 2 hours. And what was left was just delicious. Now, my paper is like that because my initial research was 10 pages, as though I had the whole conference to myself, right? But what I'm giving you now has been boiled down. But I want you to know that it came from a good source. And if you take it and use it, now it's not going to happen in a month or 6 months. It may be 10 years before you could accomplish what I'm talking about. But I want you to know that with faith and believing in yourself and what you're doing for others who cannot do for themselves, it's worth it. And with that broth, you can make gravy, you can saute other things in it. It's really good for you. It's very nutritious too. Now, I'm going to talk about some critical initiatives in this HLP problem. You're not going to be able to remember all of it, but I think you'll get the essence. The first point that I want to discuss in rights in crisis response and recovery, it's important that everyone understand that they have rights. If they don't understand that they have rights to as a fundamental for shelter, for livelihoods and stability, especially after a crisis, then they have no hope. If they think that it's just going to happen, it's not going to happen. They have a right to have this. The first thing is understanding the importance. HLP rights are essential for providing shelter and stability to affected populations. If you've never been homeless, you don't understand what it is to be homeless. And if you not have lost everything that you have lived for, built for over the years, and you know your property rights may not be in a land office someplace. It may not even be a land office there. You may not even know about a land office. But you know that your property is from the maple tree over here to the elm tree. That's what grandma and grandpa and great ancestors left you. That's your property, which may or may not be recorded. But you understand it's your property. And all of a sudden, after the earthquake, some developer wants to come along and develop something else on your property, but you have nothing to show. So people that you work with must understand they have fundamental rights. Secondly, legal frameworks and policy advocacy has to kick in. They just can't jump up and down and say, that's my land, I belong there, you know, it's mine. If you're working with populations that have been affected like this, legal frameworks and policy advocacy has to be established. You have to engage policymakers to integrate HLP considerations into legislation. That's almost a laughter. Especially in a lot of countries, you try to engage politicians, you're messing with their money. So they don't want to hear about you and your rights and your legislation, number one. They're going to fight just to get the land. So just remember that. This is not an easy walk. It may sound easy. We may be able to boil it down nicely and it tastes good, but you have to work at it. The third thing is capacity building and training. You have to provide training not only for the people that you're working with, but for professionals involved in crisis response to enhance their understanding of HLP issues and effective interventions. They just can't come in and say, well, we're going to just put up another neighborhood, we're going to do this. They have to be trained. They have to know what's involved in responding to this crisis. Number 4, cross-sector collaboration. You have to foster collaboration among various sectors to ensure comprehensive and sustainable solutions to the challenges that you're going to face. You just can't work alone. You can't work in a vacuum. You got to be like the stew I was talking about. You got to have some carrots, you know, you got to have some onions, you got to have some spices in it to make it good. So don't go into a situation thinking that you and boo are going to get it done. You have to collaborate with everybody involved in the situation, and not in a way that you know it all, in a way that you're all learning to know what's necessary. Number 5, this is a hard one. Community engagement and participation. Some people are just afraid to speak up. They're afraid that if they work with you and you're going to try to talk to a policymaker or someone in the government, oh my God, first thing they think about, they're going to come and kill me at night. So you have to understand the fears that people will have in dealing with a situation like this, especially when they can't find their papers. Especially when the papers are written on the trunk of a tree someplace, no land records. So you must be compassionate, you must understand it, and you must be patient with them. But you have to let them know that they have to be involved in order to be effective in decision-making processes to empower them in planning and implementing intervention. You may want to do something else, but that is not native to their community. It may be native to yours, where you come from, but they're not looking for a recreational center, maybe. They're looking at where they're going to plant their veggies so they can eat when they don't have money to go to the store, you know, or maybe a sacred river that's important to them in their religious belief. So you have to take all of those things in consideration. Number 6, oh, by the way, there are always going to be some naysayers, some people that are not going to believe that you can do anything, that just leave them alone and that God's going to take care of it for them. No, God is waiting on you to help them to understand what they have to do. So you have to be persistent in your understanding and understand their philosophies and their ways of life if you want to get them to participate. It is not easy to give people free advice because, number one, you're a stranger to them often, and they think that you know it all, so they're going to show you that you don't. So you have to be patient. Number 6, innovative technologies and practices. Oh, I love this one. You have to utilize innovative technologies and sustainable construction techniques to support your initiatives in crisis-affected areas. You can't go in building skyscrapers, folks. You may have to do bamboo shelters, but do it in a sustainable manner, okay? You do it so that bugs won't be, feeding on the people in those sustainable shelters, but just check it out and see. You can't import everything if you're going to build new shelters. What is available there that people can use that that will grow back, that they can buy cheaply or that they can grow themselves. You got to think, when I thought about solar baking, I said, my God, it's the sun. It's free. There's no utility company dealing with this bakery. So they can bake 24 hours a day. You know, at nighttime, we have a propane tank that they can use. But at least 500 loaves of bread can be baked every day with the sun, which is free. Okay, see how it was a little difficult getting it there, but we got it there. The thing weighed two tons each, but we got them there, okay? So think sustainably. Think out of the box. Sometime you may be able to go on YouTube and get some really good ideas of what you can do in your community. And the thing about it, when you're using sustainable technology, make sure that the people are trained properly. I remember once, it was 2014, I was in Haiti visiting some of my projects, and one of the ladies said, oh, Dr. Fisher, they said, the toilet stinks so badly. And this was in Creole, so I had to get it translated. And I said, well, don't you have one of the disposable, toilets, the composting toilets? They said, yes. I said, well, she said, but we pour bleach in it. I said, you what? Well, we pour bleach in it. They weren't supposed to put bleach in it. The bleach kills the pathogens that digest the poop. So they didn't know. So instead of those toilets being an asset to them, they were a problem, okay? But the people who built them were in such a hurry, they did not take the time to teach them properly how the composting toilets work. So make sure whatever you institute that the people understand how to use it and the sustainability of what you're doing for them. Oh, and by the way, some people are going to think you're crazy. You can't worry about that. You want to use tested methods. You have to get the people to agree to use your technology. When I did the one oven, they used it on the beach with a hurricane and the earthquake happened. They called and said, we need another one. This thing was cooking spaghetti, macaroni, and beans with the sun, and the people accepted that. Okay, and we actually had training sessions for the whole community on how it works. And anyway, just remember that. Now, 7, legal aid and access to justice. Wow. Where are you working? Is there any justice where you're working? Or is it hiding someplace in the trees that you can't reach it? You have to realize there are going to be some stumbling blocks in your way, but you have to be persistent. It's a test of your heart and your determination if you really want to help people, or if you just got a grant, you go in there to say you're doing something. This is a heartfelt thing. You are impacting the lives of people, and you must take it as something that's very important. It extends beyond yourself and your program. It gets to the heart. It gets to the soul of people, okay? Preaching all the time. I'm sorry about that. You have to ensure access to legal aid and justice mechanisms. This is for the lawyers. For individuals and communities whose HLP rights have been violated. How are you going to do that? I mean, you look at all the political crisis that's going on. People are afraid of the police. The police so often are tyrants. The people in power want to own you, your sister, your land, your cow. They don't care. They just want to own. So how are you now going to ensure access to legal aid and justice? When you find out, let me know. But this is just a point that you must consider. It's quite difficult, believe me. It's difficult here in the U.S. Number 8, monitoring and evaluation. Establish mechanisms for monitoring and evaluating the impact of HL interventions to inform future programming. That's a hot topic. Are you going to take the time to do that? Or are you just going to throw up something and run and say, we did it? Here's the report. No. You want to establish, make sure step by step that what you are doing is being monitored and evaluated to understand whether or not it has had an impact on the community that you desired, okay? And for future program. You don't want somebody else to come along and put up something that didn't work the first time it was done. I think I'm running out of time. Let me speed it up. The stew is almost done. Additionally, it's crucial to raise awareness about HLP rights through education. You have to engage the stakeholders directly through forums and discussions. Talk to the people, listen to the people, and highlight, when you're doing all this, highlight the legal and human rights frameworks that underpin these rights. They must know they have a right to what you're trying to help them with. If you don't have that, you just lost, you're wasting time. We also must address the gender dimension. Don't let me get out of here without talking about that. Recognizing how they impact women, men, and marginalized groups differently. Gender-sensitive approaches are essential for promoting gender equality in post-disaster context. You go in there and talk about you have a right, and you're talking to a woman, and a man says, no, she's a woman. I had this business. Women, all they do is cook and have babies. You can't get around it. Men, I know you ladies know, but men, you have to address gender equality. There are women who own their land. There are families who did not have men. If you're familiar with the Bible in Nehemiah, there were women who built that wall, helped to build that wall, because their father was the only male present, and they needed to build the wall. So the women built the wall. That was one of my first texts I preached. Anyway. So it affects them differently, and especially the marginalized. A lot of times they don't even realize that they have rights. You have to make them know that they have rights, and be sure that whatever you do specifically address the differences and the problems that they felt. Okay, I see a sign in the back. I'm finishing. Developing legal frameworks and engaging in policy advocacy requires a strategic approach, including research, stakeholder agreement, policy development, and advocacy campaigns. By following these strategies, we can strengthen HLP rights, promote social justice, ensure a more resilient and equitable future for all. Thank you. Enjoy your stew.
Thank you. We really appreciate your guidance here. We're now to set up with our next speaker. I'm going to read. Oops. This is the.
Yeah, I know. Let's do it from here. That's fine. Yes.
Okay.
No, we were thinking if we should sit or just be up here, but could get the light. Oh, I think that's better. Good morning, everyone, and welcome and thank you for coming to this conference. The first presentation that we are having today is about a lead conference that happened in Puerto Rico a month ago. And we are going to be sharing a little bit of what was discussed and what were the takeaways from that conference. I wanted to see a show of hands of who actually in this conference was part of the Puerto Rico conference to see. Okay, so there's some people that were there. So feel free as we are presenting and sharing, if you may have any input to it or you would like to share, to actually share it with all of us. This is what the steering committee of the conference was putting together with all of the input of what we got during the conference, but if there's anything else that you may want to provide, feel free. My name is Iru Seralasa. I'm an independent consultant, and I'm supporting, at this moment, IOM in preparing some of these HLP events. And I'm going to let Ana Cristina to introduce herself.
My name is Ana Cristina Gomez Perez. I am a law professor at the University of Puerto Rico. I was the host of the last event in Puerto Rico. And we want to talk about the conference. Why Puerto Rico? Because the weather? No, also. But Puerto Rico had this special situation because we were 300-year Spanish colony. We had a civil code from Spain, but also on the late 19th century, we went to be an unincorporated territory of the United States. Now we are part, but not part of the United States. Puerto Rican are US citizens, but we cannot vote for president or congressperson. And we are in a very ambiguous situation. And also, we are in the middle of the Caribbean on the pathway to the hurricanes. And we are especially vulnerable to hurricanes. In 2017, we had 2 hurricanes, category 5, in just a week. And we suffered a lot. We almost had 4,000 people who died from these events. We still don't know. We're still, because we had some difficulties about the real numbers. And also, we have almost 6 months without energy power. Even when we are part of the United States, all the governmental federal recovery funds were channeled through FEMA, Federal Emergency Agency. And even when we have governmental infrastructure, even when we have money, the impact of the both hurricane is like $104 billion. The government, the US Congress give us $20 billion for the recovery process. Even when we had money, governmental infrastructure, we still had problems to recovery. Why? Because we had very serious problem with land tenures in Puerto Rico. That means that it's not only money, it's not only infrastructure, but also you need to work on the land rights and land tenure if you want to have a good recovery process.
So let's go with the conference and a bit of an overview. This was a 3-day event. We had 2 days in the University of Puerto Rico and a 3rd day where we actually visited Are you hearing me now? Okay. So the first day was mostly dedicated to Puerto Rico. So the idea of this event was trying to connect what is happening in the US in one specific place that has gone through these issues and international practice on housing, land, and property. So the first day was mostly Puerto Rico, and it was focused on the challenges and how the response for Puerto Rico actually happened and some of the opportunities that were found. The second day was looking at some opportunities that were identified in Puerto Rico on a specific type of tenure, which is community tenure, that actually allowed Puerto Ricans who were under that type of tenure to access FEMA funding much faster than any other in the island that did not have access to those rights. So a very innovative approach within Puerto Rico that could be very beneficial in other situations. And then we also had a bunch of different case studies provided from different parts of the world internationally that were part of that second day. And then the third day, as I said, we did visit this community land trust of Caño Martín Peña, which happened to have these good experiences on recovering from the hurricanes because of their tenure security and how they had been able to work through it. So I'm going to go through some very high-level numbers so you can see the level of participation. There was we had market stalls, we had a bunch of different content sessions, 138 attendees between online and in person. And then we had a very diverse amount of organizations that were part of it. As you can see here, there were donor and government agencies, both from the US, but also international organizations, a lot of local community-based organizations from Puerto Rico, academia, not just the University of Puerto Rico, but also universities from the US that participated either online or in person, and then international NGOs, the UN, and some social entrepreneur companies. And the colors that you see in here have to do, in blue are the ones that have a US domestic focus, and in red are the ones who have more of an international focus. So there was a very rich dialogue that was happening there. So I'm going to let Ana Cristina talk a little bit of the day one takeaways, because it was mostly Puerto Rico focus.
This is the number that we had about the hurricanes, Irma, Maria, Fiona, and the 2020 earthquake, like you can see, they had different kinds of funds for different programs, federal programs that were, the program were working with the Department of Housing, local Department of Housing. One of them are the disaster recovery, other is the disaster mitigation, electrical system, and one of them is for home rehabilitation. Like I said before, it's like $20 billion that we have. And like I told you before, we had months without electrical power. Also, we had a very high number of informal tenure, and why is a very strange and was part of my investigation that I learned, that our system is very expensive and almost impossible to pay for some low-income population in Puerto Rico. 40% of the population in Puerto Rico is below the poverty levels. That means that we have different forms to acquire title in Puerto Rico. One of them is buying or donation, but you have to pay a notary lawyer and taxes related to that. And then we have succession, but we have this we have the system of forced heirs in Puerto Rico, and that complicates everything. Almost all the issues related to succession had to go through the judicial system, and it took long, like 10 years sometimes, to resolve that issues. And that means that it's very costly and long process. And then we had adverse possession that I'm going to talk after. But that things that made Puerto Rico especially vulnerable to have land tenures issues not resolved for generation. And we have people who live in the family house and they don't have any paper, even they don't have the bill of the water or electricity on their own. And they can prove to FEMA that they have rights over the property. And then we had like a $4 billion from the federal government to clear the titles. And we had this special program just for that. But even with that money, the impact is very low because we need to change the law. The problem is the law. We need to make more flexible law, more accessible law for people who can pay this. And we realize even with that kind of money, our impact is really low. And then I draft this law, it's a law now, it's just for people who suffer and ask for recovery funds, and they can prove their relationship with the land. Is law, this law that was passed in 2022, and try to make more expedite title. You can prove in different ways your relationship with the land. For example, you can go through a notary lawyer and with your neighbor and talk that person had been living there for so many years, and then it's a proof at least to have access to recovery funds. And we are working in this. The problem is it was only for the hurricanes and the earthquakes, but we had another emergency coming. We don't know when. We know that disaster, and we know what is happening with the climate change. And the problem is that if I can make a special law everything that a disaster happened, we need to change all the concepts of the law, because I think the law is not working for everyone. And this is a very hard to say for a law professor who teach property law. Especially when you know that you are teaching something now that you don't believe it in that. Believe me, for me it's a very difficult and revealing process that I have been working with this, because I know how people suffer because they don't have, they are very vulnerable. They don't have any document to prove it. They are old women. They are people who don't have education. And how is the word? Recriminalizando, recriminalizing because they don't have a title. And one of the things that we have been working is that FEMA doesn't require that you have a title, ownership title, or to have access to recovery fund, but in Puerto Rico, they require that. We had a very community-based organization that fight against that, and as a result of that, they changed the guidelines for FEMA recovery funds, not just for Puerto Rico, for the whole United States. That was something that Puerto Rico gave back to, to the FEMA. Yeah.
So as you can see, the work that was done in Puerto Rico already had some impact in the rest of the U.S., and the tornadoes that are been happening now are abiding by these new guidelines, which is much easier for people to actually justify that they do have the right to the land and so day two, So day two, we focus on again, the first part of the day was very focused on this type of tenure, which is community land trusts. And
we had a wonderful example of community land trust in Puerto Rico. I'm very proud of that because the people who has no title or documented tenure and they are on the community land trust, they had a different recovery process because they worked together in a solution, and it was easier for them to have access to FEMA funds. And it was amazing. And what is a community land trust? Like you know, it's a special kind of trust that is managed by the community and has a special purpose. And we have 3 examples on the second day. The most famous, that it was the same that we went to the last day, is the Community Land Trust Caño Martín Peña. But we also have a conservation trust, that is a kind of community land trust that is a Casa Pueblo. And they talk about how they have all this energetic system after Hurricane Maria to help people with need to keep the insulin on the freezer, and then they had something, a very special program to protect this kind of people. And then we had a community land trust on Rio Piedras also, who talk about all the tools that development to help the community especially during this process that is hard to find sometimes governmental aids at the exactly moment that you need it. And then I want to talk about the last thing about how you can acquire tenure and land title in Puerto Rico is adverse possession. That's something I have been working on it. It's about, you know, there is the same word in Spanish, in Latin is usucapión. In common law is adverse possession. And if you have to be in a possession for a period of time, it is good faith, is like 20 to 30 years. It is bad faith, is 30 years before. We amend our civil code in 2020 to reduce the term, but not enough, I think so. Just to 20 years of bad faith or extraordinary usucapión, and 20 years and 10 years to the other one. And I have been working on a bill to reduce to 5 years. I know that is some people think it's a very short period of time, but Puerto Rico is a small island we don't have enough land in Puerto Rico. We had a lot of immigration to United States. Puerto Rico are U.S. citizens, they can go to Puerto Rico wherever they want to. And we need to move the economy, move the land rights, protect the people who stay in Puerto Rico and make the land productive.
Then we also looked into some presentations for HLP issues at the international level. The conference was able to share two guidance that were produced by two different organizations, IOM and the Norwegian Refugee Council. The IOM one was guidance on 10-year security for rental assistance in Peru and for Venezuelan migrants. And the person who was part of developing that guidance is Melina, who is back there. So if you guys are interested, you can get the code, and they are also, InterAction also shared them. And then the other one was a feasibility analysis on the legal framework of different countries internationally on how community land trust could actually be done, and if the legislation was conducive for that type of tenure to be there. And Alex was part of presenting that, and he actually did that study with NRC when he was there. So, two super interesting guidelines that I think could help the international community in HLP issues. We also had two case studies, one about land restitution in Colombia and how that process works, which is the other portion of tenure rights. So you have the land security of tenure, but also when conflict happens, you do have the restitution process and how people may be returning to their land and they need to be able to access the land. So that would be kind of the opposite of the usucapion that Anna was talking about, but every context is different. And then we did have also situations for relocations where there was how the use of the land when there is a actual real risk, for example, of landslides and people might be there, how it could be reused for more of another use that would protect the land and protect people and the processes that they needed to be there. So this was kind of, in a snapshot, all of the different conference pieces. We then did a visit to Caño Martín Peña, and it was a really interesting process. We were able to talk with the Caño Martín Peña staff and see some of the community members. They're building so the community owns the land, but people own their individual houses on it. So there is actually an internal market of housing happening in that area, but the land is always protected by the community land trust. So that helps people to remain. This is a location very, very close to all of the business district in Old San Juan, so they are trying to push them out. And that allowed for people to be able to stay way before the hurricanes. We are publishing a document for conference outcomes, and it will be in InterAction's website. Just very, very high level, and all of the pieces that were talked by Dr. Fisher today, a lot of them were part of our same recommendations. So definitely working on HLP issues actually is a key for community empowerment, because when people know their rights, they're mobilized and they actually get to achieve things and move together, and it really is a force for that. The fact that communal and collective rights to the land are a great way to approach disaster risk reduction and preparedness, as we saw with the community land trust model. It was very interesting to see that the conference opened communication lines among Puerto Ricans themselves. And some people were saying we have not been able to have these discussions together with government and university and a community-based organization. So I think after this, there's been a lot of conversations to follow up on that. And there's also an opportunity for further collaboration between domestic HLP issues and international ones. There were some recommendations, mainly on the areas of learning and understanding, that have to do with trying to showcase what housing, land, and property issues are and increase awareness of these among humanitarian actors. There was recommendations on trying to have a research agenda for housing, land, and property that could then involve universities being part of that research process, and making sure that we would connect with the development sector so that the tools that are utilized in the development sector can also be adapted for humanitarian processes. Definitely a lot of recommendations on collaboration and making sure that the conversation did not stop in that conference or in this one, and trying to connect the networks. And also seeing if there is possibility for collaboration between different universities, because there were a lot of them that were present. And keeping that engagement between domestic work in the US and international work to learn from each other. And the last one was about profiling HLP and making sure that it's visible. So really making sure that policymakers in the US and elsewhere do know about these issues and they can be included in policies in a much more intentional way. And working with donors on making sure that whenever there is a response, there is some type of housing, land, and property analysis so that interventions are not jeopardized because of it. And so I'm not sure, yeah. So if anyone from the conference that did attend may have something to add, like please feel free to, and we will include it in the outcomes document. Eileen?
I had one observation since I was there for part of it. I think one of the recommendations was that local actors be more a part of it.
Be more?
Part of the conference.
Yes. So
Was that in that recommendations? I don't know.
I think it was on the, yes, I think that was also a great point, to make sure that local actors get more involved in this type of conference, which definitely we will make sure that we include that piece. There's pieces on US versus international, but I think your point of getting further and just making sure that local actors are engaged, we will definitely include that. Anyone? Joseph?
Will there be another one?
So, absolutely. Puerto Rico is definitely wanting to, but I think we definitely should keep the momentum going, and is so. Other. Okay. Well, I think this is it. And what is now?
Okay, thank you, Iru and Ana Cristina, for that really great presentation. And as Iru mentioned, the outcomes document from the Puerto Rico event will be published at the same time as the outcomes document from these next 2 days. So please just keep an eye out for that. We are going to take a quick unscheduled coffee break since we're running a little ahead of time, and then we will move into the next agenda item. So please take the next 15-ish minutes and grab a coffee, grab a water, chat amongst yourselves.